Hi, and welcome to the High Vibration Living podcast. I'm your host, Chef Whitney Aronoff, and today I have the pleasure with chatting with Chef Kelly Scott. Chef Kelly Scott is a nutrition-focused personal chef serving those with specialty diets, restrictions, and those who want healthy food that tastes amazing. She trained at the Culinary Institute of America and has over 5 years of experience in professional kitchens and restaurants. She loves teaching cooking techniques on social media and through her cookbook, The Basics of Cooking. Welcome to the podcast, Chef Kelly.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
Me too, because you have so much to share and teach, and you do such a great job of doing this on social media. And I'm really excited and grateful that you had time to come on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited. I love your podcast and everything that you do. So when you invited me, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, why don't we introduce the listeners to kind of who you are as a chef, what you were doing with your career in life previously, and what led you to culinary school?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a chef here in Orange County, Southern California. Prior to that, though, I've only been a chef for probably 6, 7 years been in the industry. Prior, I actually had like nothing to do with cooking. I had an interesting journey to getting to becoming a chef. Earlier in my life, I was like a very intense volleyball player. So I played college volleyball and volleyball like basically my whole entire life. And so that was my life. I didn't have time for anything else. And so in college, I actually got a traumatic brain injury that made me have to quit volleyball. I was medically disqualified from playing ever again. So during that time, I was basically got like super depressed and because that was what I thought I was going to do for my life. I was like, oh, I'm just going to play pro volleyball and coach volleyball. I don't know. And so when that was kind of like taken out of my options for my future, I was just like very much in a dark spot in college. And so I turned to having an eating disorder. I had what's called orthorexia, which is a little actually less known. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's becoming more talked about now. It's just kind of when people fixate on having perfect food, perfect health. I made sure to like work out all the time. And by doing that, I lost like 50 pounds within a year, which I was not in a place to be losing 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And it was very, very unhealthy, but I was just like so obsessed. And that was the thing I just latched on to because I didn't have any control with my health and my brain health. So I was like, well, I might as well control every other aspect of what's coming into my body, what I'm doing for workouts and all of that. So that's what I did. And through that, I ended up cooking for myself because I didn't trust anyone else to cook for me. I was like scared of every single oil possible, scared of like just everything. I was very limited on what I ate. So I started cooking for myself. And through that process, I actually was like, oh, this is fun. Like cooking is really fun. And even though I didn't like love eating that much because I still had like food fear, I got more into cooking. And when I started to come out of my eating disorder and get help, I got a therapist, nutritionist. I still loved cooking. And so by the end of my college, which that was probably like my junior year of college that happened, by the end, my senior year, I was like, I love cooking so much. I want to keep doing it. And then after college, decided to go to culinary school because I was like, I can't imagine just like not cooking all day, every day. So that's
That's
kind of how I got into it. And then I got into culinary school and all of that. But yeah, that's like how that rose up. Before I was like 21, I did like couldn't even cook like an omelet. I like didn't cook anything.
And now you do such a great job of teaching people basic techniques in such a clear, understandable, relatable, and approachable method. It's
Thank
really,
you.
it's really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I love doing that because when I was like 21 and like just learning how to cook, I was just like learning from recipe books and like Food Network and stuff. And I really didn't like understand this stuff. So like my goal is to help people who are like probably in the same space, who would just like to learn the techniques more and like learn things here and there that can help them make the recipes and cooking for them easier and also more enjoyable. Because when you're like a better cook, it's like obviously more fun to cook.
Exactly. Well, when you graduated from culinary school, I know you went and worked in some restaurants and worked with some meal prep companies. How how did you find what to do after culinary school? That's such a tough, everyone,
Yeah.
you get out of school, whether you're in college for another industry or culinary school, once kind of the gates open up, you almost don't know where to go. How and where were you led?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like right after culinary school, like you said, you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I even want to do? Because there's so many different ways you can go. I originally started with restaurants and I worked in a bunch of restaurants during culinary school. And through that experience, I knew I absolutely hated it. Working on the line is not easy at all. And it's a really hard on your body, and the hours are hard. And also, you don't get paid much either. So, that was I knew pretty quickly after school. I was like, this restaurant world's not for me. So I ended up working at like a healthy meal prep company in Orange County. And they're called Model Meals. And I worked there for a long time. And just to like learn more about like kind of the food industry. And also I really was into healthy cooking still, because I still like to cook healthy, and like that's how I eat. And I wanted to be able to cook that way for other people too. So that was my introductory into working for a company that was more health food based, which was always my goal anyway, because I never wanted to work in like restaurants or places that did a lot of unhealthy stuff, because I love helping people on their health journeys. So that's how I got into that niche. And then from there started doing more private chefing stuff, because I couldn't afford to live basically working on just that salary. I was like, oh, I need to supplement it with other stuff too. And so I did a lot of personal chefing stuff, and then kind of grew from there.
Did you learn anything working for a meal prep company that you've been able to apply into cooking for yourself or your clients? Like any special techniques that you saw them doing that you can now
Yeah.
use for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot from them, and what to do, what not to do, especially with meal prep and healthy cooking and stuff. It really helped me learn what people like when it comes to like sauces and how to make meal prep more interesting. They did a great job of like making sure each dish had a fun sauce and a fun meat and different themes. So I was able to learn more about like organization for meal prep, how to kind of plan for people on their meal prep, because that's kind of what I do now for a lot of people, and how to keep it like interesting and not just your typical rice, veggies, and meats, So try to
Yeah.
keep it more interesting. So that definitely helped working for them and learning that stuff. And I was like head saucier. So I was like cooking all the sauces, which I think is the most fun and most interesting when it comes to meal prep, because sauces just make everything more interesting. So that definitely helped me prepare for more things I would do after that company.
So for your clients right now, are you creating customized meal plans for them? Or do you put together a menu for the week and then all your clients pick and choose from that same menu?
Yeah, so I do the former. So I don't have like a set menu for people because I kind of made my services kind of how like I would want to eat. Like I personally, from working for that meal prep company, learned I don't like ordering from set menus because it's not personalized. So I wanted to make a service for people and my clients that would be super personalized to their needs, goals, allergies, because not every one person's the same. So I have a lot of clients that will even come from like other meal prep companies that have the set menus, and they want something different because that just like wasn't working for them. It wasn't enough food, or they don't like a certain
Mhm.
vegetable, an allergy. So all of my clients' menus each week are completely different and catered towards their needs, because like that's what I would want personally out of like a personal chef. So that's what I like to do for my clients, and it helps with people who have allergies, diet restrictions, all of that.
I've heard the same thing as you, that there's never enough food. And way
Mhm.
back in the day when I lived in LA, I did a meal prep delivery service company briefly, and it was the same thing. It wasn't enough food, and all they needed to do was just add some more steamed vegetables, and I would have been
Absolutely.
satisfied. But
Yeah.
it was there were not enough vegetables, and the portions were just so absurdly tiny.
So small, yeah. And I would eat the meals that from the meal prep company I would work for. And I would always be hungry. And I'm like, how are people who are like bigger than me, or men, for example, who usually eat more, like not starving after these meals. And same like the vegetable thing. I'm like, I want all the veggies, and they usually skip out on the veggies because they're more expensive and all of that.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Mhm.
So how do most of your clients find you? How do you as a chef network?
That's a great question. So now that I'm more established in the area, a lot of word of mouth and social media too. I've got a
Right.
ton of people on social media. In the beginning, when I was just first starting out, it was more just random, like lead websites. Like I had my very first client from Craigslist, ironically enough, which is like seems so sketch now that I think about it. But they were great clients, and I got them off Craigslist. So I just had to like advertise more. But now that people like my services, and I have like the clients that I've had for years that will just like share my name with people. It usually just comes word of mouth and social media. People like randomly find me from like Orange County stuff, so SoCal stuff and all of that. So a lot of just, yeah, networking with the people I already work with.
How do you approach a new recipe? So if a client reaches out for meal prep and says, I really would like something like this. Can you make it for me? And it maybe is a dish that you haven't made before. How do you approach it? Do you just go and search for recipes and then choose the one that feels most appropriate according to the ingredients and your client's preferences? Or do you practice ahead of time? What do you do?
That's a great question. I think it definitely depends on like what they're looking for. With most things like cooking wise, I know the techniques of stuff. Once you know the techniques, it's like very easy to cook a recipe, as I'm sure you know. So if they just want like a certain pasta dish or a soup, I can look at a recipe and be like, okay, I know that'll be good, and even adapt it to what I think would even be better. Like if there's some things I know they might not like in there, I'll just change it and kind of make the recipe my own. So I don't necessarily need to practice it, and I'm just tasting it along the way. So you don't have to. If it's like something where it's like technical, if my clients request like a baked good, for example,
Mhm.
baking's not necessarily my most talented arena. I definitely practice that because especially with like gluten-free baking and certain like dairy-free, if you have any restrictions there, it could turn out horribly in my experience. So I always want to practice that at least once when it comes to baked goods. So that's kind of how my approach. What do you usually do? Because I always see you do great recipes and baked goods. Like, are they all in your arsenal, or do you have new ones coming in a lot too?
So it's funny. I'm like you. I've been cooking since I was a little kid. I had a lemonade
Mhm.
stand at 11 years old. Like when I was in middle school, I was making my own pizza dough. I took all my babysitting money and I would walk to the grocery store, buy all my ingredients and bake all weekend.
Oh my
So
God, that's so cool.
yeah, I got the baking bug out of me
Uh-huh.
by the time I was in high school.
Oh, that's good. So you're an experienced baker then.
But that was like 1990s, slightly not health supportive baking, right? And
Mhm.
if you go with traditional baking with white sugar, white flour, eggs, it's really basically easy.
It's easy with those. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
easy.
health supportive cooking, changing the sugars and the flours is harder because things don't cook at
Oh yeah.
as fast.
Mhm.
As you know, every person's oven's a different temperature.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
So that is just different. So how I approach that is when clients request really specific, like I have to create a new recipe for them, I
Mhm.
say, okay, round one is going to be an experiment. We have to all be on board for the fact that this is an experiment. We're taking a traditional recipe and we are going to switch the flour to the flour that you're choosing, such as cassava or
Mhm.
Bob's gluten-free flour. And then we're doing the sugar of your choice, whether that's maple crystals, date sugar, organic raw cane sugar, honey, maple syrup, whatever it may be. And so I just let them know round one is an experiment. And then we kind
Mhm.
of go from there.
That's smart. Yeah, because like you really don't know when, especially when you're making it from scratch. That's so different, and each sugar is different, each flour is different. So it's really like kind of a guessing game till you like nail it down.
Exactly. And then the other thing is You have to find tried and true chefs and bakers whose recipes you can trust. So like I can always
Yeah.
trust Martha Stewart. I can always trust Barefoot Contessa. I can always trust certain people, Paleo Running Mama. So
Love her stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I can
Hmm.
take these people's, and just like you, like I can take a Martha Stewart or Barefoot Contessa recipe and I don't even have to practice. I can immediately edit all the ingredients in the recipe to
Hmm.
make it more health supportive. That's really easy and it works perfectly for me. With Paleo Running Mama, her stuff is already more health supportive, but I can start tweaking along the way to my personal or my client preferences and usually still get the results I'm looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said it too, where you have to have like trusted sources. There's a lot of like recipe blogs out there that just like aren't good and like they
Yeah.
don't, or they'll just like kind of not be very well tested. And so it might work for them like once, but like they have a different environment. They're using totally different ingredients that they don't clarify. And so it really have to come from like a trusted source too, because there's a lot of like pretty crappy recipes out there.
Yeah. And I have to say, I do rely a lot on the health supportive dessert recipes that I received from my culinary school. I
Mm,
really, really scored. I have vegan and gluten-free cakes,
that's so
cupcakes,
nice.
and cookies, and all these different incredible dessert recipes that are hardcore, tried and true tested.
That's so nice because yeah, like you went to such a niche culinary school where you had all the health aspects where like mine was like absolutely not. It was just like, normal culinary school. So that is so nice that you have that as like foundational recipes that you can like build on and do stuff from.
Yes, but you also, because of the school you chose, probably learn more specific culinary techniques that I maybe didn't, that I had to figure out on my own, because that was really the focus where you were.
That's so true. Yeah, I was like very technique driven and like all kinds of different culinary things from around the world. So like it was definitely everything possible.
So, what are you cooking for yourself right now? Like, is there anything in particular that you crave this time of year that you try to make the time to cook for yourself?
Yeah, I think most of my, well, the most chefs, this is probably true. So mostly I will just throw something together. However, I love a soup. I love a chili. Anything that is warming and hearty is my like go-to. And plus, like at the end of the day, I'm like tired and usually don't want to cook for myself because I've been cooking all day for someone else. So like an easy soup or chili that I can just throw in the Instant Pot or on the stove and just kind of let it go. I just like absolutely love. But anything quick and easy, unless I'm like having friends over or if I'm having a nice date with my partner, then I'll do something a little fancier. But I'm sure as you can relate, at the end of the day of cooking an 8-hour day in someone's kitchen, I come home and I'm like, I don't want to cook anything else for myself. I'm tired.
What do you do for lunches? What do you like to eat for lunch? And is there anything that you prepare in advance for lunch?
Yeah, so I love the meal prepping in the sense of whenever I cook a dinner, I cook extra for lunch. So I don't, for myself
Mhm.
personally, meal prep in the traditional sense where I spend like 4 hours out of the week and do a bunch of meals just because I don't have time for that. But I will cook a bulk of the dinner and do like double portions just so the next day I'm going to have whatever I had for dinner the previous day. And I think that works really well for me
Okay.
too, because I sometimes get sick of if I have like meal prep of like a bunch of the same meal, then I kind of get bored of it. So the fact that I can do like a dinner each day with a lunch and I'm only repeating a meal twice, it works really well for me and keeps things like interesting and all of that. And I always have like the typical like starch, veggie, protein is like usually my go-to and seems to work with me and try to get as much like healthy fats, veggies as much as possible in there too.
Since you're a saucier, any particular sauces you like making for yourself to go with your proteins and veggies?
Yeah, I mean, I love literally all kinds of sauces. My favorites for especially meal prep and like proteins and vegetables, any tomato-based sauce is so easy to just like whip up any marinara, like a tinga sauce, salsa verdes, even like stuff like that. That are also like lighter, not like super heavy. Like I don't personally like cream, for example, just because I don't do well with dairy. So using more like vegetable focus sauces that really bring a lot of flavor, a lot of herbs like pesto sauces. Love anything with herbs, tomatoes, vegetables, onions, garlic, all of that, or anything. Like I'll put it on anything basically.
What do you do when you get burnout? So, I find that sometimes I get to a point where it's not that I just am so tired of cooking and like my hands or arms physically hurt, but I can't even figure out what I'm craving anymore. Like nothing sounds good, but I'm hungry, but nothing sounds good. What do you do when you're in those moments?
Oh, I totally feel that. That happens to me probably like once a quarter. So it happens to me a lot where I'm just like, I don't even know what I want or what I like. And when that like happens, I do like two things. Either one, I try to go to like a new restaurant or like try a new cuisine and get like inspired that way. Cause when I'm in a rut, I usually just need some new inspiration. So I'll go to some new restaurant. Like the other month I went to an Afghan restaurant, never Afghan food before. So I tried that and it was really, really good and like got me inspired to do some more rice dishes and all of that. So like that will help me get out of a rut. And another thing that my boyfriend and I like to do sometimes, if I'm in a rut, I'll be like, name a cuisine or name an ingredient that is like usually not what we eat. And he'll like name something and be like, Korean food or something like that. And then I'll just have to get creative with it for one night a week of the dinner. And so that will help me like inspire some new ideas and get some creative juices flowing because I'm kind of like forced to. And especially if I don't have to pick it out, if he helps me pick it out, then I'm like, oh, okay, that's easy. It's kind of like another thing I have to do, but then it gets me more inspired to cook something new. So I definitely say like cook something new or try something new. That usually helps with me with food burnout or creativity burnout, for example.
That's a great suggestion. I need
What
to
do
I need to book some new dinner reservations for the next few weeks.
same. I always say that. I wish I need to like go out to dinner more just to try more places, but I end up going to like the same spots and get on my routines, but definitely need to be like more adventurous.
Yes, the only place that I eat out here in Orange County in LA is actually Erewhon. And I usually
Mhm.
always get the same thing because it's just my way of not having to make lunch or dinner for a few days. Uh,
Yeah,
but otherwise, I save eating out for travel.
that's smart. Yeah.
That's really when I usually eat out. I need to get better at it and try exploring Orange County a little bit more, or LA or San Diego.
True. Yeah, there's so many options in LA and San Diego, but yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to do it more when I'm like traveling too, because I just feel like it's more like a vacation thing, and I never like grew up eating out a ton. So even if I eat out a ton, um, I feel like it's so thrown off of my routine if I do it too much, especially like as health focused chefs and eaters, it's like hard to find spots that align with those values.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. And I understand. I think as more people learn about health and wellness and cooking, um, they can really relate to where you were with your orthorexia, where you're a little scared to go out and eat because of how they're going to be preparing your food. And knowing as chefs, we know the quality of the pots and pans they're using. We know the oils they're using. We know how they're cutting their salad dressings with
Mhm.
the oils that aren't listed on the menu and all those little things. But I think there are points where you just have to get over it and enjoy the experience.
A
Because you
hundred
just can't
percent.
control everything in life. So with restaurants, I kind of give it like with everything in life, it's like the 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the time
Yeah.
I'll eat at home and I know I'm eating food that makes me feel good and I know the source and I'm preparing it. But the other 20% of the time, I just got to lighten up and enjoy life.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't like just be worrying about it all the time. And that's what like culinary school actually helps me with because going into culinary school, I was still kind of an orthorexic, not like completely, but like my mindset was still like, oh my God, I'm scared of all these oils. But being forced to eat all those things and realize like, okay, I'm not going to die from eating this every now and then, every other week,
Yeah.
really helps. And like, I'd rather just enjoy life than just worry about it all the time, like I used to worry. And it's just more enjoyable and less stressful when you are actually like enjoying the food. And like, it's not like you're doing it every day, like you said. So it's all about the balance.
Have you found that by not stressing about the food you're consuming, that your health has actually improved? Or do you think it's just kind of stayed the same?
I think it's definitely improved because stress obviously has such an impact on health. And I could see the most with my mental health because like before, when I was in an orthorexic state, like I would go out to eat and like I would have like panic attacks, especially if I was in groups and like wasn't able to control what restaurant we were going to or what we were eating. I would just like ruin the mood because I would literally just have panic attacks from eating out. So my mental health alone, like from lack of stress and when that like has happened is so much better because I can actually enjoy my life and like be less stressful. And then obviously physical health too, stress manifests in so many ways. Um, and I would just have like physical anxiety. I would have stomach aches because like stress and gut are so linked together that now it just like doesn't happen. So definitely like the less stress has had a way positive impact on my life versus eating super strictly like I used to.
For anyone that's listening, could you maybe make recommendations on a few different modalities that you sought in order to get over that state of mind?
Absolutely. For me, I saw out, I would say three different ways. I got a therapist that specialized in eating disorders that helped me basically just like made me immerse into what things that made me uncomfortable, because it's obviously eating disorders are a mental illness, so you have to completely rewire your brain and how you think, and it's you can't do it alone. It's really hard to do it alone. So that was the first thing I did, and then I got a nutritionist as well who just helped me kind of make a plan on what I would eat because I needed to plan it out. I couldn't do it alone and just change it, because my brain was just completely rewired and like I didn't know how to eat like a normal human. So I need a nutritionist to help me figure out, oh, this is normal and like this is what you should eat again and blah, blah, blah. And then the third thing that helped me, which I know this is a lot, like, and a lot of people can't just get all three. I was fortunate where I was able to. And my third thing, I got a trainer because with orthorexia, I was just like running marathons basically every day. I was just
Okay.
sprinting all the time. So I got a trainer who forced me to change how I worked out. We only did weightlifting. We didn't do cardio. We made sure it was like easy on my body. And I wouldn't be able to, if I was doing it by myself, I wouldn't do it. So like that was the third and final thing that I implemented a little later. I did the therapist first because I feel like the mental health aspect is the most important. Nutritionist, like I did second because I just like didn't know how to eat. And then the third, about like a year later, I got a trainer who basically just made me stop doing everything I was doing and made me train differently and helped me gain the weight in a way where like I wasn't tracking my weight. He was doing it for me. So he was kind of like hands-on controlling all of that. So I just kind of had to get like an army of help to basically rewire my brain and change everything. But I
Which,
would say,
yeah,
yeah, I
no,
would say like mental health first therapy was the number one thing to help like get out of that mindset.
yeah, and transition into, a new life outside of volleyball and everything else that was changing in your life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because usually there's a trigger with things with people who have eating disorders. So it's usually just a lot of life things you have to deal with and emotional support because it's hard to do things alone, especially when you're in that state.
Yeah. Well, now you're in a career that, you're your own boss, you run your own business, and it requires a lot of you physically and mentally. Have you sustained any chef injuries? And if so, what have those been and how have you healed them?
Countless. As I'm sure you know, being a chef is hard on the body, which I didn't realize until I was in this industry. Especially starting out, I was just not anything crazy. Starting out, I would burn myself all the time. I have just scars up and down my arms. I don't know if you have. I just like am
I
very
just
clumsy. Oh yeah,
I just got a new one, and it's always with the baking.
always with the baking. It's like not anything else. It's always sheet trays falling on your arm and stuff like that.
Oh,
So I just have a ton of burns. I never really cut myself, luckily. Knock on wood. I did never get any like crazy injuries there. And then the wear and tear over over the 5-6 years that I've been a chef have kind of just gotten to me this past year, where I have a lot of extreme tendonitis in my hand. I'm even wearing like a wrist brace right now. So I have tendonitis in my arm and wrist. And that honestly started because I worked for the meal prep company, and I was just like cutting hard stuff all the time. And I wasn't very like mindful of being careful with that. And so it triggered it then, and then will flare up every now and then. I go to physical therapy a lot for it, which helps. And then my most recent injury was I had cartilage damage and a tear in my kneecap, actually, which cartilage damage is probably from the volleyball. However, the tear in the kneecap was, I was cooking one day and I just took a step to my left. That's all I did. And I just felt something on my knee. Like,
Oh my God.
I felt like a pop to me, but it ended up being what was the knee tear in the kneecap. And I was like, that's not good. And I actually got surgery on that last week. So that's on the mend. But yeah, it's a lot of wear and tear, as I'm sure you feel. Most chefs have that just from like the constant standing, lifting things, chopping things. It's like a lot on the body.
It's a lot on the body. Nobody talks about it. Nobody warned
No,
you in culinary school. Like,
no,
and honestly, you were the first chef I've met that talked about it. And
really?
I know tons of people who are chefs. I've worked in restaurants like you. No one would talk about it. And you were the first person that talked about it. And you share on social media how you go to the infrared sauna. And
Mhm.
and it just made me feel, it made me feel so much better that
Yeah.
I wasn't alone in the aches and pains and the wear and tear on the body. For anyone that's listening who might not understand what we're talking about, it feels like you did a really hard workout every day when you might not even have had time to work out. All you did was stand in a kitchen. And
Literally.
yeah, and if you put a Fitbit on, you actually don't move that much when you're cooking in the kitchen. It's not a great workout. It's just really
Mm-mm.
hard on your hands and your arms and your knees and your legs because you're standing on tile or hardwood floor for long periods of time. But your body starts to really, really ache.
Oh yeah, it's just achy all the time, like you said. And yeah, you're hunched over. Like my postures, I need to definitely focus on my posture. But yeah, it definitely adds up. But I'm surprised, like you said, I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, because I can't imagine that like not everyone feels that in this industry, especially if you're even working the line like people do. Like I don't understand how people aren't in more pain than they are.
Yeah. So is there anything that you try to do weekly to support your posture, your body aches, just your overall well-being, because you're spending so much time giving to others? Like, what are those things that you do to keep the balance?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I'm a big on like self-care and health. And when we're in an industry like we are, we like have to take care of ourselves. So physically wise, I love an infrared sauna so much. I've felt that with inflammation and like working all the time and being so like puffy and inflamed, that really helps there. So I actually have like a portable one that we have in our house, and I'll just like sauna once a day or like 5 times a week usually. And I've seen that that's helped a lot with inflammation, and like it's red light therapy too, and red light's so good for that. So I love, love, love the sauna. What else do I do? Like weightlifting and physical therapy to help just correct all the things that I'm doing. So a lot of like hand physical therapy, lower body ones too, to make sure I'm like set up correctly and just fixing all the things that I'm doing while in the kitchen. And mental health wise on that category, because I'm big on that. I like to meditate every single day, just because it helps, because being a chef and a business owner is like very stressful. And I find that if I don't meditate daily, I will literally go crazy and just have so much anxiety. So I try to keep those in my practice to kind of counteract the stress and high intensity life of being a chef.
How do you meditate? Do you listen to an app? Do you listen to music, or do you just sit in silence?
I wish I could sit in silence, but I'm not that good at meditating yet. I do listen to an app. I have what's called I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Newcom, and it's kind of just like binaural beats or whatever they're called, like the meditative type of listening. And I'll do that for either 20 to 40 minutes, and I'll just like get in the
Wow.
zone. Yeah, and usually I try to do it in the morning to start my day right, and just like get in the zone and chill and listen to that. I'll have like my noise canceling headphones on, and just get me in a good place to start the day.
Well, with that in mind, I'd love to know, as you know, a health supportive chef that you are, what your morning and evening routine is.
That's a good question. I'm a very like routine person, type A. So it's pretty typical. Like normal day would be, I usually wake up at 5 a.m. I will probably go straight to the gym and try to do either walking, or I will do weightlifting, and then come back, meditate, get ready for the day. And then the day usually starts at 7 or 8 a.m. and I'll just get to cooking for all my clients, go where I need to go or do stuff here in my kitchen and cook until, I mean, basically whenever I'm done cooking for the clients. As you know, that's however fast you may cook or whatsoever. And so that usually gets me till the early afternoon. I like to end kind of early so I can have my evenings and then have dinner, and then nighttime just kind of chill. I live with my boyfriend, so we'll either watch a Netflix, and then I'm usually in bed by like 8 and just reading before bed, and keep it routine that way. So it's pretty like jam-packed day, but I try to keep it very routine or else I'll be kind of like thrown off.
Yeah, I have to schedule my wellness regimens within the calendar to make sure that, you get it all done.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to like squeeze them in.
Are there any kitchen tools or gadgets that you use right now that you're really loving that you think the listener at home might enjoy bringing into their kitchen?
That's such a good question. I have a few in mind. Well, first one, I'm gonna start with like super basic that I find that people don't necessarily use a lot at home. I use a bench scraper for everything, like
Oh,
picking up stuff. So like a bench scraper is like, for people who don't know, a lot of baking people, like pastry chefs will use it to like cut stuff when they're baking and kind of pick it up. However, I use it just pick up everything on my cutting board and like throw it in a bowl. So it's just like so much easier to transfer stuff. So
yes.
I'm always like, everyone needs to just get a bench scraper. It costs like $10 on Amazon. Just pick everything up. It's like a game changer, I swear. And it's like so easy. So that's like my handiest tool. And then some gadgets I like really enjoy using. I love an Instant Pot. I know not everyone loves an Instant Pot. I think they're great because one, it like takes stuff off the stove for me. It's already crowded on the stove. So I can just throw like a stew in there and it'll quick instantly um within like 40 minutes, whereas a stew would might take like 2 to 3 hours. So it just helps shortcut it. So I love an Instant Pot. Another fun gadget I like to play with is a sous vide. I love using a sous vide, which is where, for people who don't know, you can basically cook stuff through a water bath system, and it's temperature controlled, so you can cook meats and stuff in there, and it's just fun to play around with that. So those are like my gadgets I think are super fun and like a useful tool that I see that not everyone uses, but otherwise I really just use cutting board, knife, normal pots, pans, and keep it pretty simple otherwise.
What about any seasonal ingredients that you're really into right now? Anything new you've been scoping out that you're enjoying cooking with?
I mean, winter season, I like love, love, love any squash. Squash is like my favorite season always. So I will eat any squash. My favorite squash is honey nut squash,
Oh, yeah.
are which I've just started seeing on the West Coast this year, more
Mhm.
predominantly. I'm from the East Coast where it's more common. And for the past like 4 years that I've lived out here, I have not been able to find them until this year. So I've been loving the honey nuts. Anything seasonal. I love all the winter things. Citrus season is coming in soon. So I'm like really excited for sumo oranges, which are my favorite oranges ever. I'm just like waiting for them to show up. But yeah, I really like to cook as seasonally as possible because the ingredients just taste better then. Is there anything you're loving currently?
So I've been making roasted kabocha squash, which I love. You know, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it looks like a mini green pumpkin and it's more Japanese. I love roasting kabocha squash. And then I've been doing a hazelnut gremolata on top
Ooh,
for my
yeah.
clients. So basically it sounds fancier than it is, guys. So basically I take parsley, any type, flat or curly, some fresh basil, lemon zest, olive oil, I think a little lemon juice, garlic, and ideally hazelnuts, and just whip that all up in a small, tiny little Cuisinart till it's kind of nice and chunky like a pesto. And then I put it over the kabocha and it's amazing. And I only tried 2 bites at a client's. I've been making it for like all my clients, and I tried 2 bites one day because I'm a pretty intuitive chef. I actually don't taste test everything because when you start to make things a certain amount of time, you know how to be right on with everything. And when I tasted this gremolata with the squash, it blew my mind. So I have all the ingredients at home right now. I'm just really hoping I have the time and energy to make it for myself this weekend.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds so good. I'm gonna have to make that because the combo of hazelnuts and the squash is just so good.
It's so good. And you know, I really pack it with tons of fresh basil and parsley. So it really becomes like a heavy veggie source with me. And then I can just, you know, have just a little piece of protein and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I have the energy, maybe I'll steam some broccolini to go with it and also dip it in the gremolata.
I'm gonna have to make that soon. That sounds delicious.
I'm hoping to make it too with a nice little like paleo meatball. It'd be a really nice meal.
Yeah,
We just
that
have
sounds
to
great.
see if I have the energy to get it done.
That's the thing. Yeah, getting the energy after working a full week is not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any cookbooks? I know you have a huge stack of cookbooks at home and you now have your own cookbook. Is there any cookbook you've been wanting to dive into that's just been on the shelf for a while?
Oh, I have so many. I have this issue of where I buy a ton of cookbooks and I almost never cook from them. I really like reading through them and getting inspiration, but I almost never like cook an actual item from them. I have this Thai cookbook, which I cannot remember the name of. I should look it up. This Thai cookbook that I'm meaning to cook like a really authentic Thai dish from. I just need to make my way to like an Asian grocery store to get all the ingredients because you can't get them at your like everyday store. But I also really love obviously like Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking is a classic. I just have never cooked from it. I just like looking at it for the most part, which is usually my kryptonite. I just buy a ton of books and will like look at them and be like, oh, this recipe looks so good, and then never cook them. Which I don't know if you have that problem, but it's definitely a problem of mine.
I have that problem. Well, it's interesting because I have, surprisingly, there's 2 cookbooks that I heavily cook from for my clients. So I'm constantly walking around with a like 1990s Esalen Institute cookbook. Are you familiar with Esalen Institute?
No, I'm going to look it up after this though.
Yeah, so the Esalen Institute is in Northern California in Big Sur, and it's kind of known as this hippy dippy wellness spiritual center. And they grow all their fruits and vegetables, and everything in their kind of cafeteria restaurant is from the land that they grow their food from. They have hot springs, and it's where people go for yoga retreats and spiritual and wellness workshops, conscious living workshops. And their little cafe restaurant's super famous. And my client had the cookbook from there, and she just wanted a bunch of recipes made from that cookbook. And so she ultimately gave me the cookbook, and now I cook recipes for all my clients from that cookbook. And I've tweaked all the recipes because it's like 1990s healthy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know how every era and time has a version of what they consider healthy.
Oh yeah.
And it's really fascinating. So I cook a lot from this cookbook, tweaking the recipes, and I just never have been able to take the time to type up my version of the recipe. So I just carry this cookbook around with me as if I'm carrying my knife set as well. It goes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Goes with me everywhere.
Go into a client's place and you'll have the cookbook with you to cook out of.
Yeah, I carry it with me
it
all the time. Yeah.
I will definitely be looking that up after this.
And then my dream cookbook to cook out of that I look at all the time, and I always tell myself, I'm going to start cooking one recipe from it a week, and it doesn't happen, is it's the cookbook called Nourishing Traditions
Oh, I've heard of
by,
that one.
by the president of the Weston A. Price Foundation. I'm just blanking on her name at the moment.
Hmm.
But it's a classic, and it just has a lot of traditional, old school, healthy seasonal recipes that I just really want to cook from.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those.
Yeah, exactly. Well, tell me what inspired your cookbook and the process of putting that together.
Yeah, so I had this idea for my cookbook probably like a year or two ago. I always knew I wanted to make a cookbook eventually. I just didn't have the time or energy. But my cookbook's called The Basics of Cooking. And so the concept is I wanted to make a cookbook that actually taught people techniques as well as the recipes, because a lot of cookbooks will usually just give you recipes and like have beautiful pictures and stuff like that, but never really teach the techniques, which when I was learning how to cook like in my early 20s, I was like, okay, I don't really know how to saute or like grill stuff. I'm just kind of like winging it and like making a ton of errors and trial by error usually. So I wanted to make a book that actually like taught people, and especially like the fundamentals, and so that they could grow from that and then cook any recipe that I basically wanted to. So that was like the concept. And I had been thinking about it for a long time. I had it outlined for probably like a year. And then finally this year, I knew it was the time to start it, and really put it out there. And I'm really excited for everyone to see it. It's been doing like really well, and like people have been gaining lots of like knowledge and I think value from it, which was my goal, just to help people learn how to cook. And it really is for like any from beginnings cooks to like seasoned cooks. Like for example, like my grandma has been cooking. She's 95. She's been cooking since she was literally a child. She's like Italian, so it's like all in her family. I sent her the cookbook and she was like, it's truly like any other cookbook. Like you really go through the techniques and teach people versus just kind of throwing it out there. So even my grandma who's been cooking her whole life is like, I even learned some stuff.
Oh,
So yeah, which was really special and great. So that was my main goal, to just help people build that foundation through basically I summarize the 6 techniques that are like for every like fundamentals, which is like saute, roast, grill, braise, stew, and fry, and just go through all of those, break down the science of each of them, and do a bunch of fun recipes so you can learn while you're cooking. And also what's unique is it's all connected to video content. So there's lessons where if you get the book, you have access to all this video content. So it's basically like a course in cooking, because you're learning from all these videos. Every single recipe has videos that goes with it too, so you can actually see the techniques demonstrated in front of you. Because I'm a visual learner, so I knew I wanted to bring that into it too.
congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. Did not realize how much work went into making a cookbook, but I really think it's great, and I'm really excited for everyone who gets to read from it.
What do you think is the one cooking technique that most people are intimidated by?
I think the probably cooking meat, and I know it's not like one technique, but like especially more expensive cuts of meat or braises and stuff like that. So like meat's obviously the most intimidating, and that falls into a few different categories of cooking, obviously, and techniques. Um, but I find that people have the most questions about that and cooking with that because it has a higher price tag. So it's a little scarier to deal with, and also a little trickier if you are just starting out and maybe don't know a certain cut. But I found that in my experience, meat's actually like one of the easiest things to cook, because it's like kind of a science to it. You can't really, as long as you do the technique right and like have a meat thermometer too. Meat thermometers help. You really can't mess it up in my experience. Once you have taught those techniques, then I think it's actually pretty easy to cook meat. What do you think about that? Would you agree? Because I
Oh,
know some people
I think
disagree.
I think meat is the easiest. Um,
Same.
But what do you think is harder? Do you think meat and poultry or fish and shellfish?
That's a good question. I think for me, I think shellfish and seafood are easy for me. And that's just 'cause I have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy, but I think for the general people, like most people, shellfish and seafood is a lot more tricky to like get mastered at because you can easily overcook it and it becomes rubbery so quickly. And also like fish skin can be difficult for people too. So I think for like most people, I think shellfish and fish are intimidating and there's like less experience with it. And meat, it's probably a little harder to mess up, I think.
Yeah, I think it's if you're buying quality meat, it's harder to mess up. If you're buying
Absolutely.
poor quality meat, it's easier to mess up because you're already starting with a foundation that doesn't have flavor or has a poor flavor.
Absolutely.
I
I
think
can
that's the
literally
big thing.
taste, yeah, especially with poor beef and like pork, for example. If you're starting out with like bad quality beef, it's really hard to get the flavor out of that. So it's harder to cook that and make it like actually taste good.
Yeah, and I can't do cheap chicken.
I
Once you've
I
had
hate it.
once you've had good chicken, you can never go back to
It's like doesn't even look the same. It's
yeah.
crazy. I like
It
the look
doesn't.
of like a generic chicken. I'm like, it's like yellow and weird looking. I just like can't stomach it.
And massive amounts of water and fat come out of it
Oh
when
my
you cook
God.
it.
So much water. Yeah, it's just like pumped full of water.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I can't believe there was a time where I thought I knew what I was doing with chicken.
Literally same. I would used to like in college, especially too, when I was obviously not having any like a job or anything, I would get like $2 steaks and be like, this is so good. And now I'm like, what was I eating?
When I was in college and early 20s, I was buying frozen Tyson's chicken at Costco and I'm
Yeah.
horrified. But then I went through a phase where I didn't eat chicken at all because I was following eating right for your blood type. And
Mm,
it says for anyone that is a B positive blood type, that chicken doesn't digest well for you. So I avoided chicken for many years. And when I was
mhm.
in culinary school, everything from our culinary school was from organic, from Amish farms, from upstate New York, the green market. It was incredible quality stuff. So we were doing poultry day and we were cooking chicken all different ways. And the chicken had all come from an Amish farm in Pennsylvania. It
Oh my
was
God. So
exceptional.
cool.
Yeah, it was exceptional quality chicken. And I was like, forget eating right for your blood type. I'm trying
Yeah,
the chicken today. And
absolutely.
it was like a room full of ravenous dogs. Nobody could believe how good the chicken was. It didn't matter how it was prepared. We all went crazy for the chicken and it changed it changed my life because
Yeah.
once you experience a high quality simple food, you can never go back to buying the cheap version of that simple food.
Oh, 100% agree because the flavor is just like so much better. And obviously the health qualities of it too. You just like feel so much better, which is why like I always prioritize having high quality meats. I know it's like difficult to access for a lot of people because of the price range. However, I think of it like if I'm buying this meat now, like I'm going to pay for it in my health later.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I spend my money on, it'll be make sure to have like high quality meat because I know low quality meat has such a detriment on health.
Where do you like to buy your proteins? Do you buy them at a grocery store, online, butcher shops? Where do you go?
I like to do it. Farmers markets, number one, local as much as I can, local, grass-fed, organic, all of that. I will sometimes order online. Like I know there's a lot of shipping services that do deliver, which are have like really high quality. And then try to find like a local butcher that is high quality. In Orange County, we have a few that are really good. The butchery is really good. I also love Electric City Butchery. It's in Santa Ana. It's a little farther of a drive, however, but great quality meats and you can really just taste the difference and you're supporting local too, which I love. But yeah, I feel like any farmer's market's going to have options wherever I have lived. I've lived on the East Coast, I've lived here, I lived in Northern California, and every single farmer's market I've gone to has usually has great quality meat access.
Yeah, I agree. There's always at least one vendor that you can really count on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have any like a favorite spot where you get your meat for the most part?
So I really shop around. I'll get things
Mhm.
at Whole Foods when they tend to have great grass finished lamb. And
Mhm.
occasionally they have, grass finished short ribs. So I kind of watch what they have and get it as appropriate. I
Mhm.
get certain things from the butchery, particularly chicken
Mhm.
and pork for my clients there. I buy from the Laguna Beach Farmers Market from the meat supplier that's there. I also buy lamb from them, and that's where I often get organ meats. I get organ meats at
Oh,
the butchery,
nice.
but I like to get
Mhm.
the organ meats from the place at the Laguna Beach Farmers Market because they can have really unique things. Like they'll have lamb liver, and so
Oh,
I can buy the lamb liver, grind it up in my little Cuisinart, and then mix it in with lamb meatballs or something else that I'm doing, and just get something different that I feel is going to be health supportive for my liver or my body that.
right. Yeah, you don't find those in grocery stores, that's for sure. It's really hard to
Yeah.
find beef or lamb organ meats. So yeah, that's smart. I'll have to check out the Laguna Farmers Market.
Yeah, and then I do buy my meats online because I had a guest on my podcast that introduced me to field harvested meat. Are you familiar with
Mhm.
field harvested
I'm
meat?
not, no.
So that's when the farmer doesn't just raise their cattle or their lamb or their bison and make sure that they're eating truly from the land, but they also will harvest the animal on the land, like outside on the land.
Mm.
So the animal's not put in the back of a truck and shipped
Oh,
for
that's
miles and
nice.
miles. So it
Mhm.
never gets scared and it doesn't fill its body up with cortisol. So the meat that you're getting isn't filled with more cortisol. Um,
That's amazing.
they believe that by doing this traditional practice of field harvesting the animal, it doesn't just improve the quality of the meat, but it improves the quality of your health because now
Mhm.
you aren't eating meat filled with additional hormones because the animal was never stressed.
That makes so much sense. And honestly, that my parents actually do this. I didn't know it was called field harvested
Yeah.
till you just said that, but they live in like kind of the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, and every year they will buy a cow and they do that practice. I just didn't know that's had a term to it. And you can really taste the difference. Like their cow meat always tastes so phenomenal over any other grass-fed cow, pasture-raised cow I've ever had. And that may be because of that.
Wow. So I order from North Star Bison. I go online and I order
Okay.
in bulk from North Star. And I get a bunch of meat from them. And then through them, I'm also able to get different meats with the organ meats already ground in.
Oh,
And so
amazing.
that makes it a lot easier when, I'm hungry and I know I'm going to need to cook dinner after work. I can just
Mhm.
pull the meat out of the freezer and let it defrost by the time I get home. And usually it's just making a paleo meatball or sauteing something in a skillet.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so I order from North Star Bison. Um, I've been wanting to I've ordered from 99 counties before for my clients. It was
Mhm.
previously known as Wallace Farms.
Oh, I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think what else, if there's anybody else that I order from, I'd like to. Unfortunately, Riffle Bison Farms, who I had on my podcast, they only sell at like farmers markets on the East Coast or
Oh,
directly on their farm. They sell out so fast they don't need to sell out online. But if
good problem
anyone,
to have.
yeah, if anyone's listening in the state of Virginia or in Maryland or in Washington, D.C., look out for, or even West Virginia, because they're based in West Virginia, kind of right on the border. Look out for Riffle Bison Farms at a farmer's market. You want to buy up everything that you can when you see them at the farmer's market. Like that is the most blessed bison you are going to find.
Oh my gosh, now I want some bison. I will definitely be ordering from the places you just listed. I am excited about that.
Yeah, I need to do a bulk reorder. I ordered some some from 99 county. I can't 99 counties or North Star bison. I ordered, you know, a 100% grass finished brisket. And that
Mm,
was so nice to have in the freezer because I just caramelized a bunch of onions, you know, added bone broth and some herbs and, you know, the seared meat. And it just made for such a nice, slow cooked, hearty meal
oh,
that you can just
so
easily
good.
add a bunch of greens in with the mixture. And then you have dinner for a few days and it's just so nice.
Oh, it's the best. And brisket's my absolute favorite. So grass-fed biscuit, yum.
I know when you do it right, it is so good. And I think most people think brisket, they think of like a sugary meat, but there's a
Mhm.
great way to prepare brisket in a more health supportive manner.
Oh, absolutely. I love doing it in like the way you do it. I also loved like tomatoes and like all of that, more of like a Jewish style braised brisket. But yeah, most people think of barbecue brisket with like all the barbecue sauce and sugar and stuff. My favorite is actually just braising it low and slow and making it really, really delicious.
I'm the same way. Well, is there anything in the health, wellness, spiritual, or culinary space that you're really into right now that you want to share?
Yeah, well, I am into the spiritual space. One of my good friends is like an energy healer, which got me more into it. So I'm currently really into energy healing and really focusing on that. And I found that has helped so much. I do some Reiki, I do um lots of like sound bath healing as well. And I feel like that's so good for not only my mental health, but really for my physical health. Anytime I leave an energy healing session, I just feel much lighter. My anxiety is gone and just like at peace with like everything. And I'm pretty high stress anyway. So that just like grounds me and brings me back down. So I've been loving that lately. I can't get enough of it. That's been probably my latest thing over the past 6 months, health wise and spirituality space wise, is all of that.
I completely understand. I couldn't do what I do. And I wouldn't want to live without it. You know, I
Mhm.
was always working with an energy healer and doing sound baths once a month prior to becoming a chef.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this for a really long time. God, I probably started going to sound baths in the early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
And
That's so
then
cool.
yeah, probably in 2010 is when I started getting hands-on healing and doing that once a month. Um,
Hmm.
and you know, it just evolves over time. You find different people with different skill sets that just help unlock the next layer.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you find like new things. Every person has a different thing that they add to their healing sessions or sound baths and stuff like that. And it's just fun to explore. I feel like there's such a wide range of things in the spirituality space and like especially healing space with spirituality that I don't even know about. So I'm excited to explore that a lot more.
Yeah, it just naturally keeps going and unlocking different doors. Are there
Mhm.
any particular teachers that you like to follow on social media or you go and see in person that you want to share?
Yeah, well, one of my good friends is Christina. She's Christina the channel. You can find her on Instagram, all that. She is an energy healer and also psychic. And so she introduced me to a lot, but I love all of her content and everything she does. It's just very like genuine and very good energy. So that's what I listen to and like podcasts and stuff there. And then I've found some local, I've been kind of like bopping around recent localing, try to find like some people here because Christina, my contact is in San Diego. And so I've just tried some new Reiki places here and there, just trying some new people out and trying to find like one that's a good fit for me. Haven't found one I like absolutely loved yet. So I'm still on the market. I'm just like trying new places and seeing what works. So yeah, I've just been kind of bopping around. But yeah, I love Christina's podcast. I love listening to all the people on your podcast too, because you have a lot of fun ones on there too.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I've also been loving like human design stuff recently as well, and just diving deeper into that and implementing that into my work too.
Yeah, you have to build the foundation of understanding who you are and like all the skills that you came into this life with. You know,
Exactly.
I feel like
Yeah.
human design is just such a great way to build up your confidence again. If you're just in a rut,
Hmm.
like turn to human design or any of those modalities that just help you better understand yourself. And it gives you just such a great confidence boost. It reminds you that you have, special, unique skills and something to really share and give.
Yeah, that was put so beautifully. I think that's so true, especially whenever I'm in a rut and need some guidance. I turn to those things lately, and it just helps me realign and know that, oh, well, things are going to happen how they're supposed to happen. Especially human design has really helped me in business, just not force things that aren't how it's supposed to be in my design and my energy field, and kind of going with the flow of what my like foundation and blueprint is supposed to be.
Well, as a chef, where do you turn to keep kind of learning and growing? Does it just come naturally with areas in your life because you're cooking all the time that you realize that you need to strengthen? Does it come with travel? Does it come from watching cooking shows? Where do you turn?
That's a great question. I think a big part comes naturally, just like day to day learning stuff and like adjusting how I do things in my business, learning like what works and what doesn't work, is number one for sure. And then usually just life experience, interacting with other chefs, going to new restaurants and learning that way. I like to watch video content on like social medias and seeing how like other chefs do things, especially that aren't in my field, or maybe like if they are a cook different ethnic foods than I am experienced with, that I learned that way. I don't really learn from, I just don't have time to watch a ton of cooking shows per se. I wish I had more time to like sit down and enjoy them, but I just don't. So I do a lot of more like quicker form videos to learn stuff and just get inspired, and then going out and eating and connecting with other chefs and foodies and learning kind of what they do and seeing how that can help in my business as well.
I feel yeah. Um,
Mhm.
any accounts on Instagram or TikTok that you think that you are following right now that you're loving? I always love learning about new people out there on any topic.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I will try to stick to cooking themed topics because I have a wide range of stuff, but in the cooking field, I have been loving on TikTok, 'cause I'm mostly watching stuff on TikTok. I scroll way too much. But I love a few accounts are Lovely Delights. I really enjoy her TikToks. She does like healthier baking, which is fun, and it's just like aesthetically pleasing and all of that. I also love Cat Can Cook on TikTok. She's on Instagram too. All of them are on Instagram too. But she was a cook who used to work for Martha Stewart. So she has like a lot of cool insights and tricks and like a lot of healthier stuff too, which I love. And then another one I also love is I think it's pronounced Genevieve on TikTok. And she is a more professional chef and does like she has a whole business in Las Vegas and does like really high end stuff. So it's cool to see what she does,
Ooh,
and inspiring as well too. But yeah, I love all like food creators mostly on TikTok and Instagram. It's just fun to see what everyone's doing.
it is. It always is. It's impressive how they put those videos together because it is hard work to
Oh
film
my
like
gosh.
that and edit like that and actually cook the food.
Yeah, it's literally a whole nother job. It's so difficult to do. So especially people who do it in like a very artistic way. I'm very impressed.
Me too. Well, where can people get in touch with you, work with you, watch your incredible cooking videos, get your cookbook, share
Yeah,
it
they
all?
can, thank you. They can reach out any basically social media I'm on. So at Kelly's Clean Kitchen, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, at Kelly's Clean Kitchen, and you can DM me on Instagram. I'm pretty good about getting back to DMs and inquiries there. And then if you wanted to work with me locally, I do a lot of private events, dinners, meal prep for people, cooking lessons. You can either go to my website, kellyscleankitchen.com, and you can inquire there or via Instagram, whichever is easiest.
Fantastic. And could you leave the listeners with maybe one healthy tip that they can consider adding into their life?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is really treating your mental health with the most respect. And I think meditation has like really changed my life. And I know formerly I didn't meditate ever. And I was like, oh my God, I can't sit down for 5 minutes and just not think. But that has like transformed my life. And if you're a type A stressful person like myself, I think it is hugely beneficial.
Thank you. That's
Mm-hmm.
a great tip. And I love that you shared the app. I think it was New Calm for meditation.
Newcom, love it. Yeah, it's been a game changer for me.
I will check it out. Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much for being on the podcast. This was so wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you. It was so great chatting with you. I had so much fun and I appreciate having me.
Yeah. And anytime you want to share anything new or come back on and chat all things cooking or healthy cooking or anything else you're exploring or into, please reach out. I'd love to have you back.
Thank you so much. I definitely will.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, bye.